So, welcome back to our series. Today we cover the state of Rheinland-Pfalz in our series of covering the 16 federal states. And yeah, I hope you help you learn some German today, and let's just dive right into the article of Rheinland-Pfalz. So, this is the kind of coat of arms, the weapon of Rheinland-Pfalz, you could say, with a, I don't know what it is, like maybe a lion, a bear, whatever. A wheel and some flag that looks like the English flag, just in reverse. But yeah, let's just dive into the article, kind of. Riesling, Müller-Thurgau oder Silvaner. Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer ernten 2/3 des deutschen Weins. Auf dem offiziellen Portal erfahren Sie mehr über Land und Leute, regionale Wirtschaftszweige oder touristische Weltattraktionen. Daten und Fakten: Bevölkerung 4,16 Millionen, Landeshauptstadt Mainz, Größe 19,853 Quadratkilometer, Bundesinlandsprodukt in Millionen Euro 2024 184.034 in Klammern Platz 7, Bruttoinlandsprodukt pro Kopf 2024 44.046 in Klammern Platz 9. Einzigartig: Nirgendwo in Deutschland gibt es mehr römische Baudenkmäler. Sitze im Bundesrat 4. Platz 1 im Ranking: größter Weinproduzent. Special Fact: 72 der 100 kleinsten Gemeinden Deutschlands liegen hier, darunter Dierfeld mit 9 gemeldeten Einwohnern 2022. So, Riesling, of course, I'm always going to translate it word by word, sentence by sentence, and as a whole, but as a whole also in terms of the sentence, as a whole sentence. I hope you didn't get that wrong. And yeah, let's just start. Riesling, Müller-Thurgau oder Silvaner. And I forgot to mention, I'm also going to add some facts that I may know, but of course I'm not going to know everything about every federal state. So yeah. Riesling, Müller-Thurgau oder Silvaner. Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer ernten 2/3 des deutschen Weins. Riesling is a sort of, what's it called? Wine. Let me just translate that. Weintraube. Grape, of course. Used for wine making, wine production. Of course, what I forgot to do is to kind of show you what it is and what it's famous for in the most popular cities. So yeah, very much famous for it, and which is also mentioned in the article very, like, many times, which you may not have understood yet, but I'm gonna, of course, guide you through the article. Where is it? Is it here? Rheinland-Pfalz is very, very famous for the kind of area of the Mosel, which is a river. Here it's called Mosel, as you can see. Very much, yeah, famous for that, and the river, because it is very typically, like, when you visit this area, not just in terms of tourism, it is very typical for you to see these what's it called? Weinberge in German. Weinberge. Vineyards und Weinreben and grapevines. Interesting. Didn't know that those were the words. Oh my god, I can't talk today. Those were the words. But yeah, so very famous for vineyards and grapevines. And yeah, let me just show you a picture. Mosel Weinanbaugebiet, which just means the area where you kind of, what's it called? Anbauen. Yeah, grow or cultivate these vineyards, you could say. This is very, very typical for this area, this region. The most important cities in Rheinland-Pfalz, which is by the way located right below North Rhine-Westphalia, which we did last episode, and which is also, what's it called, kind of, you could say, cornering, or like, of course, in any case, it's very much bordering the state of Saarbrücken, federal state of Saarbrücken, which is only bordering to France and to Rheinland-Pfalz. So the most important cities in Rheinland-Pfalz are Koblenz, Neuwied, you may know, but probably not. Cochem is very, very famous for the Mosel gebiet still, even though it's maybe a bit more far away than, for example, Trier, which is also a very, very famous city there. Then we have Zell, which is also very popular in terms of tourism at the Mosel, I don't know which way to pronounce that in English, but Mosel gebiet. Yeah, Koblenz, I already mentioned. Montabaur is also very famous, I think, if I'm not mistaken. In Montabaur, this is something that has to do with, is it Audi? I'm not quite sure. Something was in, I'm not quite sure, or is it BMW? There was something with some car, I don't know what it was, but in Montabaur, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, are there any other important cities? Yeah, Kaiserslautern, very, very important. This is also, in terms of the Bundesliga, so the football clubs, very famous. Any other? Yeah, generally, like Kaiserslautern, Trier and Koblenz are the most important cities, and maybe Bitburg. Bitburg is also very famous for the kind of ad, you could say, with Btw I hope it's gonna also pull up a picture of those things that I mean. Yeah, this kind of with a beer, what's it called, brand, beer brands, German beer brands, and there's a very famous, kind of famous, but like very typical ads on at least the, what's it called, Bierdecke, the beer mats where it's Bitter ein Bit and all these kinds of things. Yeah, Bitburger, very, very famous for the beer industry, you could say. And yeah, so this was just for the first word and for the introduction. So Riesling, it's a kind of species of these grapes used for winemaking, and winemaking, it's, I think this is all this is gonna go into, by the way, because it's always very short, but yeah. Müller-Thurgau, I think this is also a kind of wine grape species or something. Oder means or. Silvaner, probably also a kind of grape species. Let me just pull up. Silvaner, yeah, seems like a wine or grape species. Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Rheinland-Pfalz, I don't know which way you say that in English. I don't necessarily know if you need to translate that, or I don't know if I necessarily need to translate that. Should I say that? Oh god, what's that? Oh god, that's terrible. So, Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Rheinland-Palatinate, I don't know, is Weinland, wineland, you could say. This is a kind of more German phrase, but I don't think you would say wineland in English, but yeah. Number 1 is 1 in Deutschland, in Germany. So, Riesling, Müller-Thurgau oder Silvaner, Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Riesling, Müller-Thurgau or Silvaner, I don't know. Rheinland-Palatinate is wine country, you could say, or in this case federal state, number 1 in Germany. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer ernten 2/3 des deutschen Weins. So this is kind of a connected sentence, but they could also be two separate like sentences on their own. But they are connected in this case because they make, like in terms of the content, this makes sense. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer ernten 2/3 des deutschen Weins. The Rheinland-Pfälzer, people of Rheinland-Pfalz. In German you'd say Rheinland-Pfälzer, like it's kind of like in English when you say the French, but in this case, yeah, it has a different kind of conjugative form. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer, you just do it this way. This just means the people of Rheinland-Pfalz. Ernten means, I forgot the word, harvest. They harvest 2 3/3 des of the Deutschen, German wines, wine. The people of Rheinland-Pfalz harvest 2/3 of the German wine. So Riesling, Müller-Thurgau oder Silvaner. Rheinland-Pfalz ist Weinland Nummer 1 in Deutschland. Die Rheinland-Pfälzer ernten 2/3 des deutschen Weins. Riesling, Müller-Thurgau, I don't know which way you'd say that in English. Or Sylvanian, I don't know. Rheinland-Pfalz, Rheinland-Palatinate is wine land, you could say, federal state, number 1 in Germany. The Rhineland-Palatinates, you could say, harvest 2/3 of the German wine. You could say it even though you don't necessarily harvest wine because wine doesn't grow in trees, but yeah. Auf dem offiziellen Portal erfahren Sie mehr über Land und Leute, regionale Wirtschaftszweige oder touristische Weltattraktionen. On the offiziellen official Portal. This is more like website, but this can also mean in general like portal, I think. Yeah. Gantry, haven't heard of that word, but I think you get what I mean, like the kind of more, you could say like spiritual, like transportational, I don't know, these kinds of things, but in this case this refers to website. Erfahren Sie mehr über Land und Leute, so on the official website. Erfahren, get to know, you get to know, or what's it called? Erfahren, yeah, in general get to know. Experience, yeah, this was what I was looking for. This derives from the word fahren, which has nothing to do with that but to drive, but it's the root word of that, but with the which is the prefix of that, this means to get to know or experience something. So on the official website, you get to know. Sie, this is the, what's it called? The more formal version of saying you in German. Sie. This is the plural form of you. So Sie. Mehr, more, über. In general means over, but in this case it means about. But in terms of I get to know something about. Land und Leute, state, or yeah, state in this case, but in general it could mean also country, but in this case state. Land und Leute, which is also, by the way, a phrase. Land und Leute means state and people, by the way. Leute means people, und means and. Land und Leute is kind of a, what's it called, phrase, not necessarily a phrase, but this is often used in just as a, like together, as a kind of block. It's not necessarily a phrase, like it doesn't mean anything different, but Land und Leute, for example, I don't know, is there anything I can, no, there is, but by the way, there is not necessarily anything I can think of, but this is very often used together, just to, so that you know. So, Land und Leute. So you wouldn't necessarily say das Land und die Leute, but say Land und Leute, because it's kind of a phrase. Regionale Wirtschaftszweige, regional economy, of the economy, Zweige, we had that in some previous video, which means, like, is the plural form of, what's it called? I forgot the word. Branch, it was branch. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, branch. So industry branches. So on the official website you get to know more about the country, the state and the people. Regional industry branches. Auf dem offiziellen Portal erfahren Sie mehr über Land und Leute, regionale Wirtschaftszweige oder touristische Weltattraktionen oder touristische touristic Weltattraktionen. You can separate that word into Welt, which means world, Attraktionen, which means attractions. So attractions to the world, which attract basically the whole world. And so, auf dem offiziellen Portal erfahren Sie mehr über Land und Leute, regionale Wirtschaftszweige oder touristische Weltattraktionen. On the official website, you could say, you get to know more about the state and the people, regional industry or like economic branches or touristic world attractions, you could say. And yeah, we have data and facts. Bevölkerung, Daten und Fakten by the way, 4,16 Millionen, 4.16 million. Bevölkerung means population. Landeshauptstadt Mainz, which is, what's it called? Capital city, but city of the federal state in this case. Mainz, which by the way, I forgot to mention that. Did I not see that? Because Mainz, where is it? Worms, you could also know. Here. I completely oversaw. Do you say oversee? Übersehen. This. Overlook. Yeah, overlook. Completely overlook that. Mainz is very, very much probably even the most famous city in Rheinland-Pfalz. Also, they have a very famous football club. Mainz 05, which is, also playing, I think, Bundesliga. Yeah, they play in the Bundesliga. I think they are not necessarily one of the best, but still going. And, they lost 4-0 against HSV. Oh god. So, where were we? Yeah, I completely forgot Mainz was one of the most important cities. I didn't know that is the capital of Rheinland-Pfalz. And Größe, which means size, 19.853 Quadratkilometer, which of course is 19.853 square kilometers. Bruttoinlandsprodukt in Millionen Euro, in Klammern 2024, 184.034, Platz 7. So, gross domestic product in million euros as of 2024, 184,034. So, 7th place in terms of the ranking in terms of the 16 federal states. Bruttoinlandsprodukt pro Kopf 2024, 44.046, in Klammern Platz 9. GDP per head, per person, that means pro Kopf, means, per person in English. 2024, 44.046, in Klammern Platz 9. 44,046, in brackets place 9, 9th place in terms of the ranking of the 16 federal states. Einzigartig, so special you could say, or one of a kind, but just means special. Nirgendwo in Deutschland gibt es mehr römische Baudenkmäler. Nirgendwo, nowhere, or nowhere else. In Deutschland, Germany, gibt, exists, you could say. Gibt es is just the kind of way of saying there is. It's the same in English, but for the exception that in English you say there are, here you just say there is. For plural or singular form. Gibt es. So, gibt es exists, you could say. Mehr, more, römische. What's it called? Roman? I don't know. Let me just translate that. Roman, of course, Roman. Baudenkmäler, which I don't necessarily know the exact translation. Architectural monuments. This derives from the word Bau, which means just to build something. And then there is also the word Denkmal, which is monument, something to kind of keep some event or whatever in the past in the memory of something, someone, of the people you know. So it's also called a memorial, I think, in English. And yeah, this is just in terms of something that is built like with cement and stuff. So nowhere else in Germany there are more Roman architectural monuments, which I think is true, but I think Rheinland-Pfalz is also very green and very... I think Rheinland-Pfalz, if you ask me personally, is also one of the like most German like federal states where, for example, in terms of the names of the cities and villages, you see this is very much German, but also kind of influenced by the French bordering. But yeah, this is just my opinion. Sitze im Bundesrat, Bundesrat, Sitze im Bundesrat, seats in the, Bundesrat. This is the kind of representation of the federal states. Oh my god, this time I got it right. Representation of the 16 federal states, where every federal state sends some amount of people. I think regarding, like, in terms of, depends on the size of it, they send them into the Bundesrat, which, what is it called? Federal Council. Interesting. I don't know if that's correct, but I hope so. And they, I don't know, make laws, talk about whatever. They do some politics stuff. And they have vier in German, so four. Sitze, of course, means seats. Im means in. Bundesrat, in dem means it basically, but you always say im. Bundesrat, yes, the Federal Council. 4, 4. Platz 1 im Ranking, größter Weinproduzent. Place 1, Platz 1 im Ranking, in the ranking. Größter, the biggest. Weinproduzent, wine produzent, producer, you could say, like, not in terms of music, but like producing entity, you could say. So, biggest wine producer or whatever. Yeah. Special fact, the same in English. 72 der 100 kleinsten Gemeinden Deutschlands liegen hier, darunter Dierfeld mit 9 gemeldeten Einwohnern 2022. Special fact, 72 der of the 100 kleinsten, smallest Gemeinden, which means, do you say municipalities? Yeah, municipalities. Deutschlands, of Germany, liegen, lay, or like, yeah, liegen. In general, this means lay or lie here. Here means here, but it could also be like they, are located there. Darunter Dierfeld. Darunter in general means under that, but in this case, this means under which exist, you could say, or among that. Among that is maybe more correct. Da means, in this case, that, among them. But in general, this means there. But yeah, in this case, this just means among them. Dierfeld, which is a city or a municipality. With 9 gemeldeten, registered, I guess. This derives from the word melden. Yeah, I think reported. I think, yeah, you get what I mean. And by the way, this is kind of a side note, but a very interesting long word if you want to kind of impress your friends, with a very interesting German long word. This is one of the I wouldn't say my favorite German word, but Einwohnermeldeamt. This is also a very interesting German word. And of course, it's not my favorite word, that was just humor. So, it's residence registration office. I know there are longer words, but this is a very, very nice word. As well as, what's it called? Steuerbehörde, but this is another one. Residence Registration Office, and this is Einwohner, Residence, Melde, just for the word melde, gemeldet, registration, office, Amt. Amt. And yeah. So yeah, the other word that I wanted to show you, but you don't necessarily need to know that. Those are just very nice, interesting words. Just, I don't know why I'm doing that, but Steuerbehörde for the, yeah, this is not necessarily very long, but very for the more advanced, very loved by German service officers, of course, just joking. So, darunter Dierfeld mit 9 gemeldeten Einwohnern 2022, under which you could say, or among them, Dierfeld. I'm just gonna Google that. Dierfeld. You don't necessarily know where that is. I don't either. Yeah, there isn't even a map. Is there a map? No, I don't know. But anyways, Dierfeld seems to be a very small municipality because it only has 9 registered residents as of 2022. So, and that was it for today. I hope you liked this video. Leave a like, leave a comment, or subscribe if you want to. And yeah, see you in the next video. That was it for today. Bye!